Welcome to In Touch with Tinley. Wow, what is In Touch with Tinley? Over the past couple of months, you had the opportunity to view some programs from various different aspects of our village. One of them being Lock It or Lose It from the Police Department, the Tinley Park Chamber of Commerce presentation, stormwater presentation by our village engineer, Chris King, Discover Tinley, and also some fire tips from Tinley Park Fire Department. Quite frankly, we've had a very positive response to these types of programs. So we decided to introduce something called In Touch with Tinley, which will be presented probably once every 4 or 5 weeks with different aspects of our community being emphasized. Communication is extremely important in our society today. We have social media and all those kinds of things that sometimes I don't understand myself. However, we go out and take that extra step to make sure that we use every aspect possible to get information out to our residents. Because knowing what's going on is important. We live in a society of instant news, all those kinds of things, and we want to make sure that you know what is going in our community as much as possible, as quickly as possible. Some of the different methods that we use are the Exchange, which comes out 3 times a year, our Tinley Park website, which we've won several awards on, the electronic newsletter that comes out on Thursday. We have a Twitter feed, the TV station that the CRC puts together. We have the Mayor's Corner, which is a short presentation about once every 2 weeks, again, about what's going on in our community, and the local media. I might also point out that the economy is changing, and thankfully it's changing from a positive standpoint. There's going to be a lot of activities taking place along Oak Park Avenue and in other parts of our community. And in the coming presentations, we're going to talk about what's going on in those particular areas and what changes may be occurring, what businesses are coming in, what businesses are going out, what roads we're going to be working on, those kinds of things. Some of the topics very specific topics that we'll be talking about over the next couple of months are the Tinley Park Mental Health Hospital and what's going to happen with that through the years. What are our opportunities? What are also the advantages and disadvantages? Sounds like a great program, 280 acres of land, but there are problems with that. We're going to talk about the budget for the 2015-2016 fiscal year. We're starting our process now of going through that. We'll talk about development on Oak Park Avenue and what are the opportunities that will be there over the next couple of months. We'll also talk about sometimes our most favorite topic, taxes, and also the geography of Tinley Park. We are sitting in a very unique area from a geographical standpoint. So those are the kind of things we'll be talking about over the next couple of months. Our topic for today, we're going to talk about purchasing here in Tinley Park and what's the process that we follow along those lines. With me today, we have our new village manager, and he's going to talk with us, along with me, a discussion of how we buy things and what's our process, etc., that kind of thing. Dave, you're with us for approximately 6 months. Why don't you give us a little bit of background of where you come from, etc., that kind of thing. And also, what does a village manager do here in Tinley Park, or any community for that matter?
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate the warm welcome. Village manager has a variety of roles. My job mainly is really to oversee the day-to-day operations of the village and to implement the policies that the board has enacted. That varies from day to day. It might be dealing with resident complaints. It might be dealing with departmental issues. It might be dealing with economic development. But my job is really to make sure that our staff works and gets things done in the most efficient manner possible. Luckily, we have a very good staff here in Tinley Park, and we're aided and assisted by a lot of the department heads and the assistant managers that do a very good job for us. I've actually been doing this for a number of years. I've been in several towns, actually many in the south suburban area, Orland Hills, Richton Park, and Homewood. Grew up in the area, so I'm very familiar with the area and have watched Tinley Park really throughout the years grow and get to the level that it's at today. And I'm just really excited to be here and to help you and the board move things forward.
Good, and we're glad to have you with us, Dave. Now let's talk about purchasing. Basically, just as with your own home or business, there's 3 different areas which you purchase various things from. First one is commodities, hard items. For the village, it'd be computers, squad cars, plow trucks, paper, pencils, curtains, those kinds of things. You have those same kinds of things in your own home. that you purchase. So it's commodities, something that you use. The next one is core service contracts. These deal with specialized services that we find that will be more effective be done in the private sector. Garbage services, ambulance services, cul-de-sac plowing, street repairs, those kinds of things. And the third kind is professional services. For a homeowner or for a business, it would be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, those kinds of folks. With the village, it would apply more to our legal services, engineering services, auditing services, those kinds of things. Very specialized kinds of services. Dave, why don't you talk a little bit about how we purchase our commodities, the day-to-day operation of those kinds of things?
Sure. We actually have a policy that really directs staff as to how they make purchases. And the goal is really to do it on an impartial, competitive, and efficient manner. It's actually covered by both a local policy, and then there's also state law that interacts. For our local policy, if we have purchases under $5,000, the staff is responsible to obtain the best price possible and to make sure that there is competition when they look at those purchases. Now, if something is greater than $5,000 but less than $20,000, we actually require the staff to obtain 3 written quotations that are required. And again, when we do that, we'll take whatever the low bid is, as long as that bidder is qualified, by law. And finally, at a $20,000 level, and this actually gets into state law, you actually have to go through a very formal competitive bid process, unless there may be a situation where we might want to waive competitive bidding, for example, if we're purchasing something through the state where they've already gone through a bidding process. Or there may be an emergency.
Such as squad cars.
Squad cars, yes.
I think is a good example.
Yeah. So that in a nutshell is our ordinance. We also, as you know, have a local preference policy where businesses, we do try to purchase and help local businesses. And what happens if there's a contract of $20,000 or more, we allow a local company to essentially get a 5% discount on that bid. And that actually goes up, the percent varies, but it actually goes up to as high as $2 million that they'll get a discount. So, for example, a $100,000 contract, if a local business does not go over 5% of the lowest bid on a contract, then the village has the right to award that bid to that local merchant. So it's something that's not it's a little bit unusual so far as what other communities do, and I think it speaks to Tinley Park wanting to make sure that its local businesses have the ability to get involved in the village's purchases.
And we want to encourage them. The local businesses, those are the ones who pay the local taxes. Those are the ones who, for the most part, employ local people, and they spend their dollars in our town and those kinds of things. And I think a good example is the squad car. We have all kinds of car dealerships along 159th Street, and we love to give them that kind of business. However, when the state of Illinois buys 200 or 300 cars at a time, those dealers can't match that price. So that's why we end up with the state. The next opportunity for purchasing is core services, as we mentioned before. These would involve ambulance services, garbage services, those kinds of things. The most recent one, we have 2 of them. One is the garbage services and one is the ambulance services, and I'd like to talk a little bit about each. I can remember back many years ago, we had probably 5 or 6 different haulers who literally went through the town 5 days a week in every part of the town. So we literally had garbage trucks on the street in all parts of the town every day. And garbage trucks are pretty heavy, and we were concerned about the streets, etc., that kind of thing. And also, quite frankly, having garbage trucks throughout the town every day was not very glamorous. So part of our contract process was to divide the town up into various different quadrants so that we would have garbage trucks only in one part of the town on 1 day a week. And that worked out very well. So we went with a contract several years ago, and that was part of the contract process along with services, etc., that kind of thing. When the contract came up over the last 6 months or so, we looked at the contract, we looked at what was required in the contract, And we surveyed probably 20 plus communities from a refuge standpoint. How do they pick up? When do they pick up? What do they pick up? Do they charge extra for various services? Who does the billing? Does the village do the billing, the municipality, or does the refuge company? That's a huge factor. In some waste haulers, you have to pay extra for yard pickup, buy garbage bags, buy stickers, those kinds of things. Also, in some communities, you have to pay for the refuge carts. So we took all this together and put it into a matrix to take a look and see how we compare with other communities. And as I said, we used probably about 20 different communities, and we looked at each community and what it provided. Now, that's not a black and white kind of thing. There's variations here and there, and you have to look at it, and you have to look at the history of the company that you've dealt with. When we went with the new contract several years ago, New Way Disposal gave every resident in our community, every household in our community, a refuge cart, which was part of that particular process at that particular time. So we looked at all those kinds of things, and quite frankly, with staff and with the review of the village board and myself, we felt very strongly that our present hauler was the best bang for our buck and provided our residents with a very competitive price to take everything in. Everything in being as far as landscape waste, picking up a refrigerator, picking up a sofa, all those kinds of things, and felt very strong that this was the best for our community, and that's what we went with, with New Way Disposal. The second thing that came up over the last couple of months is the ambulance contract. Now, for many years, we've used Trace, or before that, Vandenberg Ambulance, which was basically the same company. And we're very happy with their services. They provided excellent services for our community through the years, and we were very happy with them. And when we looked for a possibility of other kinds of vendors, we took into consideration several different items: response time, paramedic experience, number of ambulances within the village, the availability, and backup procedures, and experience in the field. So we balanced all those kinds of things and went to the marketplace and kind of see what was out there. We were pleasantly surprised that there were some opportunities out there to go to bid. And we did go to bid, and there were two companies that bid in that particular process. One was Kurtz, and one was the present provider, Trace. So we reviewed both companies: response time, paramedic experience, number of ambulances in the village, backup procedures, experience, those kinds of things. And we found both companies had the ability to provide those services to our community and to someone who is in need of an ambulance very quickly. And we balanced all of those kinds of things out, and the experience level of those kinds of things were great. However, we got to the point, the bottom line, the difference between the two companies was $812,000 over a 4-year period, or approximately $200,000 a year. That's quite a savings over a 4-year period when all other things are equal. And we felt very strong that the difference between the two companies was sufficient enough from an economic standpoint, being that both companies could provide the services that we wanted for our residents, but Kurtz could provide it at a more economical service. Now, in the same breath, let me also say that as we go along, we are monitoring that particular service on a monthly basis. How many calls, what's the response time, those kinds of things, to make sure that they provide what is provided for in the particular contract. The last part of services are professional services. And in your home, those would be something like a doctor, lawyer, dentist, an accountant, someone who does your taxes. Very similar with the village. Engineering firm, law firm, auditing firm, those kinds of services that are provided. Now, just because something is cheaper is not necessarily better, okay? You have to look at the entire package. With professional services, with the architect, the lawyer, the professional type services that are provided, we look at the company itself. What does it provide us over a period of time? Does it have the backup? Does it have the wide variety of personnel within that particular company to provide what we need for our residents? Let me give you a quick example. Several years ago, we had some issues with cable TV. The law firm we had has a person on staff for cable TV. We had a situation where we needed some specialized sewer work. Our engineering company has those specialized services on staff. So it's a package deal that we look at. And with those kind of professional services, again, not cheaper is not necessarily better. I think we've all had the experience at one time or another where a company will want to buy the business or buy the services. Perhaps you had somebody in your come into your home and put up siding, or perhaps do some work in your home to remodel the basement or something along those lines. And you interviewed probably 2 or 3 or maybe 4 different companies, and you found one company that came across very well and was the cheapest price. You hired them, suddenly found out that this was $20 more, this was $40 more, oh, you wanted that, well, that wasn't included, that's $300 more. But they bought the business with the idea that they're going to nickel and dime you to death. That's something you have to be careful about, just as we have to be careful about. We had a situation probably about 20, 25 years ago with a company, an engineering, not an engineering company, a street paving company that came in and tried to buy the business. And we found out that we gave them the business and they did the street paving, but again, they started to nickel and dime us to death. So quite frankly, we made note of that and made sure that we didn't hire those particular folks again. Now, Dave, I did a lot of talking about purchasing, et cetera, that kind of thing. What's your experience that you've had along these lines, and does it make sense what we're doing?
Sure. Yeah, I've had a lot of experience, especially dealing with professional services. And you're right, professional services are something that you can't evaluate just based on cost. And actually, state law, when you hire a new firm, you actually have to solicit new firms based on their qualifications and can't really choose them based on cost. And there's an important reason for that. I think particular services like attorneys and engineers, they're almost like an extension of staff. And reasons why communities often have long relationships with those type of firms is similar to why you'd like to have a good staff person stay for a long time. They accumulate a lot of knowledge about the community, about projects, and know how to get things done in a very efficient manner. And sometimes you just have to be careful, because you can choose a company that might have, say, a lower hourly rate. Many attorneys can do things at an hourly rate that's cheaper, but it might take them longer to do it just because they don't have the experience, and in that case it actually costs you more because of the hours that they bill you for. So I think it's very important that I think experience and qualifications are critical when you're choosing a professional service.
Thanks, Dave. We reviewed the purchasing policies, et cetera, those kinds of things for the village. And as I said before, this is the first of several programs that we're going to be doing over the next several months, and probably a lot longer that, to keep you in touch with Tinley. Now, communication is a two-way street. This is our opportunity to talk to you about the village and what's going on in different aspects of the village, not only Oak Park Avenue, but throughout our entire 18-plus miles of our town and our just under 60,000 residents. Part of that communication is a two-way street. You have a question, something that you don't know what's going on, or you have a thought or suggestion, whatever it may be. I can be reached at ezabrocki@tinleypark.org or at 708-444-5000. I return phone calls myself. Might take me a day or two to get back to you, but we hope that we have an opportunity to talk to you. And again, it's our idea, our concept here, to make sure that you're in touch with Tinley. Thank you very much for viewing this. We appreciate your time.